Obscure City is a place where you can find many unique dangers. This is where she works, Cassandra Killjoy, paranormal private eye. Now a teenage girl's father has gone missing, and Killjoy believes that the city's enigmatic protector, the swordsman, is the key to finding him. So Killjoy must face many deadly dangers in her search for the swordsman. Available on Amazon.com.
In a world where the corrupt and the evil can wear a cloak of righteousness, we must look to the flawed to defend us. An outlaw, a vigilante, a guardian devil. Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and Daredevil is back! Our story begins in the 20-teens. Marvel Studios' fortunes were at an all-time high. They had successfully launched an interconnected cinematic universe, and The Avengers was the second highest grossing movie of all time. The sky was the limit, but over at Marvel Television, things weren't going as well. Their first few efforts were fair at best, so when it was announced that they were adapting some of the most beloved street-level heroes into their own streaming series for Netflix, the announcement was met with resounding skepticism. And boy, were we not ready for the level of awesome that we were about to get. The Marvel Netflix shows would go on to set the standard of excellence for all superhero TV shows. Yes, including Iron Fist. The second season and the crossover with Luke Cage were great. Watch them. But nothing, and I do mean nothing from this franchise, can match the level of success of Daredevil. A show that would go on to set streaming records that remain untouched to this very day, and blaze the trail for other streaming hits. Suffice it to say, we were all shocked when 3 years later, amongst the rumors that Disney was going to start their own streaming service, Marvel allowed their contract with Netflix to expire, and all the Marvel Netflix shows were abruptly canceled. But even back then, there was a quiet notion that all of these shows were going to be revived on this fabled streaming service that Disney was going to launch. Either way, we still would have to wait at least 2 years after the Marvel Netflix shows were canceled for Marvel Studios to be able to use the characters from those shows in anything, as that was the agreement with Netflix. So, suffice it to say, in 2019, there were a lot of fans who were disappointed when the official launch of Disney Plus was announced. A bunch of Marvel shows were revealed to be a part of the service, but Daredevil, Punisher, and the rest of the Defenders were not among them. But even when WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki dominated the conversation of Marvel streaming, the rumors still persisted that there was going to be a revival of Daredevil. Then, 2 years later, we would get confirmation of that rumor in the most awesome way possible.
How did you just do that? I'm a really good lawyer.
Hey, you guys remember when I went crazy over that poorly aged clip of the Grant Gustin Flash meeting the Ezra Miller Flash? Well, Matt Murdock and Spider-Man No Way Home? Much cooler. A few months later, we would get the official announcement that Daredevil would be revived on Disney Plus, under the title Daredevil Born Again, which is a bit confusing, as that is a storyline from the comic that they had already adapted for the third season of the Marvel Netflix show. But hey, Daredevil was back, so who are we to complain? This would be followed by the streaming Marvel shows being moved from Netflix to Disney Plus. Unfortunately, that was the last bit of good Daredevil related news we would get for a while, as we would find out that Born Again would not be a direct continuation of the Netflix show, but a soft reboot, which would feature a lighter tone that was more in line with the MCU brand. So for those of you who were wondering why, when Daredevil appeared in She-Hulk and Kingpin appeared in Hawkeye, they both seemed toned down, that's why.
I was assaulted by a vigilante.
Now, on a personal note, I really did enjoy their cameos. It was a thrill to see Daredevil in the classic yellow suit, and I'm still a huge fan of both She-Hulk and Hawkeye. But like many fans, I too was really worried about the Daredevil revival. Furthermore, while Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio were reprising their roles, the rest of the cast was not. Eldon Henson, Deborah Ann Wall, and Wilson Bethel all publicly announced that they weren't even asked to return. And while Vanessa Mariana, the Kingpin's wife, would be a part of the season, she would not be played by Ayelet Sorer, who was being replaced by Sandrine Holt, who admittedly is a great actor, but a questionable recast nonetheless. Also, John Bernthal, the Punisher, was asked to return, but he outright refused, as he felt that lighter tone would be a disservice to the character, and he didn't want to disappoint the fans. The question is, why were they doing this? Well, the rumor is that they were trying to avoid paying residuals to the Netflix writers by avoiding using characters and concepts from their scripts. But I haven't found any confirmation of this, so don't quote me on that. So, understandably, there was a great deal of trepidation from the fanbase. But then, the show was saved by the most unlikely of occurrences, the 2023 Hollywood Actors and Writers Strike. Because of the strike, Marvel Studios was forced to halt all productions. It was during this time that Kevin Feige and the rest of the Marvel Studio heads watched the first few episodes of Daredevil Born Again, and they were not happy. Furthermore, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio voiced their concern, as it was ridiculously difficult to play their characters, all the while ignoring their past history and all of the character development that they had worked on for 3 years. So, Feige called an emergency meeting and ordered a complete overhaul of the series. The show's head writers, Matt Corman and Chris Ord, were let go and replaced with Dario Scardapane, the writer of the Punisher series. Sana Amanat, the creator of Ms. Marvel and producer of the live-action series, was brought in as the producer. The show was now a direct continuation of the Netflix series like it should have always been. Eldon Henson, Deborah Ann Wall, Wilson Bethel, and Ayelet Sorer were back in the cast, and Kevin Feige personally convinced John Bernthal to wear the skull again. So 7 years after Netflix Daredevil was cancelled, the show was officially back. I will say it was around this time that Echo was released, in which Daredevil and Kingpin tonally matched the Netflix show, but I think that was just a coincidence.
And then you guys show up. And screwed everything up.
But how exactly does the version of Daredevil that Charlie Cox played in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man fit into any of this? Nobody knows. But hey, it was a cool fight.
Sweet dreams, kid.
Now, before I go any further, I have to issue a spoiler warning. It's impossible to talk about this show without completely ruining it. So if you haven't seen Daredevil Born Again, you might want to stop the video here. You've been warned. The plot. 7 years after Matt Murdock defeated Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, and resumed his role as Daredevil, his former nemesis, Bullseye, returns and delivers a devastating public attack in which Matt's law partner, Foggy Nelson, is tragically killed. The loss is so devastating that Matt gives up being Daredevil for an entire year. When suddenly, Wilson Fisk returns, but not as the Kingpin, but as the newly elected mayor of New York. While initially reluctant to put on the mask again, Matt tries to battle the corruption via legal means. But things continue to escalate to such a degree that inevitably his only choice is to let the devil out.
Daredevil?
It's okay, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Cast and characters. I just want to say that the evolution of these characters has always been spectacular, and their portrayals on this show are no exception. Franklin Foggy Nelson, played by Eldon Henson. In an interview, Charlie Cox said that as far as him and a lot of the fans were concerned, Foggy Nelson was the soul of the MCU. So while Foggy's involvement in this season might be minimal, it is still pivotal, as his death is the catalyst that sets the events of the show in motion. By removing him, we pose the question: who is Matt Murdock without his soul, without his moral compass to guide him, which sets him on a journey to find himself and eventually be born again? Karen Page, played by Deborah Ann Wall, Matt Murdock's most reliable ally and Daredevil's most faithful soldier. But with Matt being completely emotionally broken and denying who he really is, Karen has no choice but to leave. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that the moment that he finds himself, she is back at his side.
Come on. Get in.
Shotgun.
Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye, played by Wilson Bethel. Throughout Bullseye's existence, he has always had someone to guide him. His coach, his psychiatrist, the FBI, Kingpin, Vanessa, but now he's free and finally has agency over his own actions. The question is, who will the man who never misses make his next target? Vanessa Mariana Fisk, played by Ayelet Sorer. In her husband's absence, Vanessa took over his empire and she became the Kingpin. Hell, she's even wearing white when we first see her in the season. And of course, ends up running things more efficiently than her husband ever could. But now that he wants to go straight, we reach a conundrum. Does she hold on to the influence and power that she gained? Or does she go along with her husband's master plan? Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. On the surface, this becoming mayor seems like a dumb idea, a vanity project to improve his public persona and get the approval and praise of a lot of people who just don't matter. When in truth, there's a larger scheme in place to declare an all-out war on vigilantes, assemble a private army made up of dirty cops, declare martial law, and turn Manhattan into a city-state. The Kingpin will turn himself into a literal king. Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, played by John Bernthal. While the Punisher's methods are always questionable, within the world of Daredevil he remains the voice of truth, always saying aloud what the rest of the characters internalize. So during a season where Matt is openly repressing who he really is, in a misguided attempt to honor the memory of his late friend, Frank's devastatingly blunt insight is actually very refreshing.
You feel good about that?
He got life!
How about old Foggy? He got life.
And I have to say, the first scene this season between him and Matt is perfect. And those two men deserve all the awards. Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, played by Charlie Cox. While Matt has turned his back on his alter ego, he can't let go of that persistent Catholic guilt, blaming himself for Foggy's death, even though, in reality, Bullseye and the individual who hired him are the guilty party. Instead, Matt opts to bear the weight of the world on his shoulders. But that's just too much for one man to bear, especially one who's not using all of his abilities to full capacity. It's only a matter of time before he reaches a breaking point. Season 1. The theme for this season is duality, as most of the characters are repressing their true selves in hopes for change. And in the occasions when they are being their true selves, it is brilliantly represented by changes in the lighting. White for the Kingpin, red for Daredevil, and blue for Bullseye. I also feel that it was a brilliant move to change Heather Glenn, played brilliantly by Margarita de Viva, from a wealthy socialite to a psychiatrist, one that most of the characters are consulting with, and eminently suffering for their actions or lack thereof. As the serial killer Muse, played by Hunter Duan, represents the direct result of Daredevil's inactivity and Kingpin's incompetence as mayor. A killer who defaces the very city they both claim to love with the remains of his victims, making it 100% clear that not just Hell's Kitchen, but all of New York needs Daredevil. In the end, Kingpin's master plan comes together a little too well, gaining almost absolute control of the city. So if Daredevil wants to stop him, he won't be able to do it alone.
Where do we start?
We need an army.
And if that is not a setup for a certain group of street-level heroes to make a return, I don't know what is. Favorite episodes. The whole season is fantastic, but there are two episodes that I have to single out. The first is With Interest, where Matt goes to the bank to get a loan, when suddenly there's a robbery, in the midst of which he meets and teams up with Miss Marvel's dad, Yosef Khan, played by the great Mohan Kapoor.
Very own superhero, Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I'm familiar.
This is her, right here.
Now, why is this one in particular one of my favorites? because this single episode perfectly captures everything that I love about Matt Murdock.
Exactly what kind of a lawyer are you?
A really good one.
So don't you dare call it a filler episode. This is a standalone episode. And my other favorite episode is Excessive Force, when, after waiting for 2/3 of the season, both Kingpin and Daredevil drop all pretense, the crime boss goes back to brutalizing his enemies, and the man without fear returns to saving the day and kicking ass in hallways. Final verdict. I just want to express my gratitude to Kevin Feige and the rest of the Marvel Studios producers, because this show could have been a train wreck. But they took it back to the drawing board, they figured it out, and they gave us the proper continuation that we had been waiting for the past 7 years. Daredevil is back, and with the full power of the MCU behind him. Bigger and better than ever. What does the future hold for the franchise? Will the rest of the Defenders truly return? Will the Man Without Fear make more appearances in the Marvel movies? Who knows? What we do know for sure is that Season 2 is already in the works, and we will see Frank Castle again in his own Punisher Disney Plus special. So for now, we can face the future without fear. 10 points in the badassitude meter! Don't forget to practice with your Billy Club, raise a glass to Foggy Nelson, and give it a watch. Until next time, I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.